The message took longer to write than it should have, not because the words were complicated, but because of what they implied. Invitations in my family had always carried negotiations disguised as logistics. Too eager sounded needy. Too neutral sounded distant. I settled somewhere in between. I'm receiving an award tonight. It would mean a lot if you came. For a moment, the group chat remained still, those three small dots never appearing. Then my brother answered, "We're going to a concert instead." No hesitation, no softening language. A few seconds later, my mother added, "Don't guilt us." I stared at the screen, rereading the sentence as if tone might change on repetition. Guilt, an interesting interpretation of wanting presence. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. There were responses I could have chosen, explanations about what the award meant, clarifications about intention, small emotional appeals, carefully phrased to avoid sounding like appeals. Instead, I typed, "All right." 3 letters would have been enough, but politeness has a stubborn inertia. The phone fell silent again, the conversation already drifting toward safer territory. Links, emojis, casual distractions. Across the apartment, my suit hung from the closet door, pressed, waiting, a version of myself that belongs somewhere else for the evening. The venue was larger than I'd imagined. High ceilings, soft amber lighting, the low hum of conversations blending into something almost orchestral. Rows of chairs arranged with geometric precision, each seat holding a program printed on heavy paper. There is a particular loneliness to formal events. Surrounded, yet unaccompanied, I took my seat near the aisle, nodding politely at strangers who smiled with that temporary warmth reserved for shared environments. On stage, a backdrop carried the organization's name in understated lettering. Nothing flashy, just legitimacy made visible. As the ceremony began, names flowed steadily, applause rising and falling in disciplined waves. People walked up, shook hands, posed briefly beneath professional lighting, then returned to their seats carrying plaques and carefully managed smiles. Recognition has its own choreography. When my name was called, the sound felt strangely distant, as though it belonged to someone seated a few rows ahead. I stood, walked. The presenter, a woman whose voice I'd heard in interviews, panels, broadcasts, extended her hand with practiced ease. Her smile was warm but not intimate, respectful, institutional. We turned toward the audience, toward the cameras. I hadn't thought much about the broadcast until that moment, the red indicator lights, the quiet movement of operators adjusting angles, the subtle awareness that this stage extended beyond the room. The presenter began speaking about the project, about the work, about impact measured in numbers and outcomes rather than personal narratives. Listening to someone describe your efforts is an oddly disorienting experience. Your private persistence translated into public language. Somewhere miles away, my family was likely immersed in music, lights, noise, an entirely different evening unfolding without friction. Then the presenter said something that shifted the air. And beginning next month, he will be leading the new national initiative. Applause. Applause swelling. Different this time, fuller, sustained, carrying the weight of implication rather than courtesy. The large screen behind us illuminated, my name, my title, the words National Director beneath it, clean, unambiguous. Cameras repositioned, flashes erupted in small bursts of artificial daylight. I felt it then, not pride exactly, but something steadier, a quiet internal realignment. This moment existed independent of interpretation, independent of attendance, independent of whether anyone from my past sphere believed it significant. Later that night, my phone vibrated relentlessly on the kitchen counter. Messages stacked faster than I could read them. My brother, my mother, even my father,
whose participation in family conversations was typically observational. "We just saw you on TV. Why didn't you tell us it was that big? National director. We would have come." I scrolled slowly, noticing the subtle shift in language, surprise layered with something approaching urgency, as though spale, not sentiment, had altered the equation. I set the phone down without responding, not out of spite, not even out of anger, but because for the first time I wasn't sure what response would actually mean. The apartment was quiet again, refrigerator hum, distant traffic, familiar stillness. Only now the silence felt different, less like absence, more like space. Somewhere between disappointment and detachment, something had quietly recalibrated. Not a rupture, not a declaration, just a subtle, irreversible understanding.